Hey everyone, welcome back. In the last video, we talked about how to create custom prefixes for any player on the server and how to show those prefixes in chat. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a death counter that shows a player how many times they've died and lets other players look up how many times every other player has died. To do this, we're going to use another event that's built into Skript, the onDeath event. This event is triggered anytime any entity dies. So what we want to do is make sure that we only run the code when a player dies. To make that happen, it's actually quite easy. If the victim is a player, then we do something. Now what's interesting about the onDeath event, and also the onDamage event, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we'll get to eventually, is it references the player that took the damage or died as the victim. So you saw that here. So anytime we want to reference that player, we use the word victim instead of player. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to create a list variable that keeps track of the number of times every single player has died. And when a player dies, we want to add 1 to their death count. So what we'll do is we'll say add 1 to, and we'll create a new list variable. We'll call it deaths. And we want to reference the entry for the victim. Remember, if this number doesn't exist, if there's no entry for this player yet, it'll create 1, and it'll just set it as 1, because by default it's 0. So add 1 to that. There we go. Now let's have the server message the player when they die, telling them how many times they've died. So we'll say message, in quotes, you've died, and then we're going to take this exact line here in percent signs, because we want to make sure that it's actually going to grab the number, not just say this verbatim. Deaths, victim. There we go. And then times. So what this is going to do is this is going to replace this little phrase here with the actual number in that list variable. So message all that to the victim. And that's all there is to it. So we'll hit save. We'll go back to the server, and we will reload it, and it was successful. So let's set myself to, actually let's go up high, and we'll just take some fall damage and die. Flash game mode, survival. Oh no. And I died. And it says right in chat there, you've died 1 times. Now obviously that's not grammatically correct, so we can actually change our code here to make it so that it says 1 time rather than 1 times. So what we'll do is before we send the message, we'll add another if statement. That means the code will only run if something is true. So what we can do is if the number of deaths of the victim is greater than 1, so if it's 2 or higher, it'll say you died however many times. And let's add another statement for deaths victim is 1. So if it's exactly 1, we'll just duplicate this message, but get rid of the 1, or get rid of the S. We'll hit save. Obviously, we've died a couple times now, so it's not going to matter. But let's go up high again, and you can see it should still say you died 2 times. Whee! There it is. You've died 2 times. There we go. So that keeps track of the number of deaths of the player. But now, what if we want to look up all the players on the server that have ever died and see how many times they died? So let's actually add a command for that. So let's do command/deaths. This is just going to show us the list of everybody, so we don't need to add an argument there. We'll add a description. Show list of player deaths. Usage, we don't have to have the usage for this because it's just /deaths. There's no way to mess it up. And trigger. This is what actually is going to happen. So we're going to talk about something new. We're going to talk about loops. A loop is just a fancy way of doing multiple things multiple times. So what we're going to do is there's an easy way to loop through a list variable. And by looping through it, what I mean is it'll do something for every single entry in that list. So if the list has 10 players in there, it'll run 10 times. Since it's just me, it'll only run once, but that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll literally say loop, and then we'll type in the list name deaths. Put the star. When you put the star in there, that means we want to look through every single entry in the deaths list. And we'll put another colon there. So every time we loop, we can get the value of the entry that it's at. So what we can do is we'll say message, and we'll say loop, in quotes, and then %, we'll say loop value. What this will do is this will message out the value of the current loop. So if we're at the very first entry, it'll message the first value. So if we run this, it'll just show the number. It won't show the name with it. So what we can do is we can add loop index. And we'll add a semicolon just so that it looks nice. What this will do is this will show the loop index. So the loop index is the current entry that it's on. So in this case, the indices are player names, and then the value is the number of deaths for each player. So it's like a table. This will loop through all of them and message them out to the player. It's that simple. So we'll hit save. We will reload. And now if we do /deaths, it should say my name and a 2 next to it. Deaths. There we go. It's Dave HD 2. That is how to create a list of player deaths and have players be able to see the list. Pretty darn easy. Thank you for watching.